You know that feeling when you pick up your phone to check the time, and then 40 minutes later you are still lying on the sofa watching a video of a dog being surprised by a cucumber? And you are fully invested. You care about this dog. You need to know how the dog resolves its feelings about the cucumber. And somewhere in the back of your mind, there is a tiny voice saying, "What was I originally doing?" And you genuinely cannot remember. That is not an accident. That is the whole point. I want to talk about phones. Not in a smash the thing against the wall, we are all doomed, technology is poison kind of way. More in a, I have spent a genuinely embarrassing amount of my adult life staring at a small glowing rectangle when I could have been doing literally anything else kind of way. Which feels more honest, because I am not anti-phone. My phone is genuinely useful. It has maps, so I do not have to pretend I know where I am going. It has a torch for when I inevitably need to look under the sofa for something at 10:30 at night. It has kept me in contact with people I actually care about. I am not here to declare it evil. I am here to say that somewhere along the way, without entirely noticing, it stopped being a tool I used and became a thing that used me. And the really uncomfortable part is, that was not an accident either. There are entire buildings full of extremely clever people whose actual job is to make sure you cannot put your phone down. Not in a sinister thriller kind of way, just in a very ordinary, very well-funded, very deliberately engineered kind of way. Because your attention is worth money. Every second you spend on an app is a second that app can show you something, sell you something, or learn something about you that helps them sell you something later. You are not the customer. You are the product. Which is one of those sentences that sounds dramatic until you actually sit with it, and then it just sounds accurate. The infinite scroll was not designed by accident. It was designed because when there is no natural stopping point, no end of the page, no moment where it says, "Right, that is enough content for one human, off you go," people just keep going. Same with the little notification badge, that tiny red circle on your app. That is not a feature, that is a hook. It is the digital equivalent of someone standing behind you going, "Psst, hey, psst." And it works. Every time. I read somewhere that the average person checks their phone something like 90 times a day. When I first heard that, I thought, that seems high. And then I paid attention to myself for one afternoon and thought, actually, that might be conservative. I would check it when I woke up. Before I had even properly opened my eyes. Just lying there in bed, face half in the pillow, already scrolling. Then during breakfast. Then between meetings. Then while the kettle was boiling. Then during the walk to the car. Then at a red light, which I am not. Then while watching something on the telly, a thing I had actively chosen to watch that I was apparently still not interesting enough to hold my complete attention. It is like my brain developed an allergy to having nothing to do, even for 30 seconds. And the strange part is, you do not feel like you are doing anything wrong. It feels like staying informed, or relaxing, or just quickly checking something. It feels harmless because each individual moment is tiny. You are not throwing your afternoon away. You are just checking, and then checking, and then checking again. But those tiny moments stack up. They have to. I worked it out once, roughly, on the back of a receipt in a car park, because apparently that is how I do mathematics now. If I was picking up my phone and spending even 5 minutes on it each time, 90 times a day, that is 7.5 hours. Every single day. More than sleep. More than sleep. I threw the receipt away because I did not want to think about it too hard. But there is something else. And honestly, a bit more unsettling. It is what all that checking does to your head, even when you are not doing it. Because the thing about constantly interrupting yourself is that you eventually lose the ability to not interrupt yourself. I would sit down to do something, read a book, watch a film, have a proper conversation, and within about 4 minutes, I would feel this low-level hum. This vague sense that I should probably just quickly check something. Nothing specific, just check. Like I had trained myself to need the stimulation. I remember sitting in the garden one evening last summer. Actually warm for once, which in England is basically a national event. My youngest was kicking a ball around near the fence. The light was that good golden stuff you get around 7 o'clock. It was objectively a nice moment, a moment you would probably want to remember. And I was half in it, physically present. But part of my brain was already planning what to check when I went inside, like I was waiting for my own life to be over so I could get back to the phone. That one sat with me. Because that is the cost that does not show up in screen time reports. It is not just the hours, it is the presence. It is the being actually in the room, actually in the moment, actually with the people you love, and being somehow not quite there. And they notice. Kids especially notice. They always notice. And then there is the emptiness of it, which is odd because you would think that much stimulation would leave you feeling full of something. But it does not. It leaves you feeling, I do not know, vaguely restless. Like you have been busy all day and done nothing. Like you have consumed thousands of pieces of information and retained approximately 3 of them. You know that feeling when you have been scrolling for an hour and you put the phone down and you just sort of stare at the middle distance, not quite knowing what you were looking for and fairly sure you did not find it? That is your brain telling you something. It is not subtle. Now, I am not going to tell anyone to delete their apps and go live in a forest. That is not useful advice, and also, it is very cold in forests, and there is no decent coffee. What I think, and this is not a revelation, it is just a thing I have gradually and reluctantly come to accept, is that the problem is not the phone itself. The problem is passivity. Letting it happen to you instead of deciding how you want to use it. Most of the time, I was not picking up my phone because I had decided to. I was picking it up because it was there, and habit kicked in. And the next thing I knew, I was watching a compilation of dogs being surprised by various vegetables. I had not chosen that. I had just ended up there. There is a difference between using technology to improve your actual life. To learn something, stay connected with people you care about, make something, navigate somewhere, do your job, and using it as a way to fill every quiet moment before your brain has a chance to think a complete thought. One of those is a tool. The other is just a habit you never examined. And the thing is, those quiet moments are actually useful, genuinely. The slightly boring gap between things is where your brain sorts itself out, where you notice you are hungry or tired, or that something is bothering you that you have not quite processed yet, where you have a thought that is actually yours. When you fill every single one of those gaps with content, you never get to have the thought. And then you wonder why you feel oddly disconnected from yourself, which is a sentence that would have made my 25-year-old self physically cringe, and I do not even care. So here is what I have actually tried, for what it is worth. I moved the apps I was mindlessly opening off my home screen. Not deleted, just moved. One extra tap, one extra moment to think, wait, do I actually want to do this right now? Turns out often the answer was no. I just needed a half-second gap between the impulse and the action. That is genuinely all it took most of the time. I stopped taking it to bed. Phone charges downstairs now. Bought a cheap alarm clock from the supermarket. This will sound pathetic, but that one change genuinely improved my sleep and my mornings in a way that I find slightly embarrassing to admit. And I have started leaving it in my jacket pocket when I am with my boys. Not performatively, not announcing it, just jacket pocket, out of sight. Because they are only this age once, and I am only going to have limited Saturday afternoons left where they actually want me around. The phone will still be there later. The moment will not. I think the thing I want my boys to understand, whenever they are old enough for it to actually land, is that attention is not nothing. Attention is actually one of the most valuable things you have. Where you put it shapes what your life feels like from the inside. And you get to decide where it goes, in a way that feels small and daily and unimportant, but adds up to something quite significant over the course of a life. You can point it at an endless feed of content designed by people who make money from your eyeballs. Or you can point it at the things that are actually yours. The work, the people, the conversations, the afternoon in the garden when the light is good and your kid is kicking a ball around near the fence. The phone will always have something else to show you. It was built that way. The question is whether what it is showing you is better than what you were already looking at. Most of the time, for me at least, it was not even close.